Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another lecture in advanced networking. In today's lesson, we are going to be focusing on virtual LANs or VLANs. Uh, in the previous number of lectures, we have looked at number of things like routing, switching, and in those we sort of identified what a network is and how we may interconnect networks using routers or interconnect between networks using routers, and then we would use switches to interconnect various nodes or devices to those networks. So virtual LAN is just an extension from there, whereby we are able to create certain type of networks that don't particularly depend on the physical topology of the network. Again, this may be a topic that you have covered briefly in your previous courses, but we'll be going in a bit more detail in today's lesson. So when we look at VLANs, the main thing that we would try to do with VLANs is about segmenting the network, or like partitioning the network in a way that is not matching to the physical topology or physical arrangement of the network. So for example, if we see the network here, so this is the router to which all the devices are connected. Then there are a number of switches there, and then with each switch there is going to be a set of devices connected. So that is the physical connectivity we have. So each of those are assigned to each of the floors of a particular building. So that is the physical grouping of the devices. But then what we may want to do is, in an organizational environment, we may have a need that people from different parts of the organization are co-located in different places. Say, for example, there may be people from, say, the IT department, and people from the IT department few people may sit at different floors. Say, some may be in the first floor, some may be in the second, and some may be in the third. But we would want them to be as part of a group of network, or as a single network. Similarly, say HR or sales or different departments, different organizational units, they may be located physically in different places, but we may want to bring them into a single network, or like as a group want them to have in a single network. So with VLANs, what we can do is, regardless of the physical layout of the network, regardless of the fact that they may be physically located along the same lines, we may still be able to access them, or we may still be able to organize them into these separate networks. So that is what we mainly do, this partitioning of the networks based on certain requirements of an organization. So then we do this partitioning at a layer 2 level. So that is at a switching level, layer 2 switching level. We would implement this in switches. So the concept of a virtual network, it would be managed and it would be used by switches. So because these devices are ultimately connected to various switches, so these switches are the ones that would identify these sub-networks or these virtual networks that exist within that set of devices that are connected. And by limiting or by creating these virtual networks, what we essentially do is we essentially create a new network from the point of view of other networks. So anything else or any other network that is connecting to this network would view each of these as separate networks. So each of these will be viewed as separate networks from other networks. So even though physically they may be organized in a particular way, they may still be looked up as separate separate virtual networks. And that would also mean we would create, for each of these virtual networks would become their own broadcast domains. So when we say a broadcast domain, so that is when a device in a network sends a broadcast packet, for example, that goes out to all the devices that are attached to that particular network. So here, because we create this virtual network as a separate network, then all the devices belonging to that virtual network will still be part of the same broadcast domain. So regardless of, say, whether they are in, they may be physically located in different places, they would still fall under the same broadcast domain. And the other main thing is the devices themselves would not know that whether there are VLANs or not, because the implementation of VLANs happens only at the point of these switches. So any other devices will not be aware of what are the existing VLANs or not. They would see them as any other network. So even though in implementation they may be implemented as VLANs, anything else would view those as any standard network. So when we think about VLANs, we would use VLANs because there are a number of benefits that we can get from VLAN. So one of the first examples could be the level of security that we can get from VLAN. So what we mean by security is, say, if all these devices of this network are interconnected, because they are physically interconnected, and if all those are assumed to be in the same network, what we would have is all of them being able to communicate with each other without any limitations. That may be an issue because unnecessarily allowing different nodes in a network communicating may not be desirable. So if we can, for example, if we can say certain people, if we can identify them as guests and then put them on a guest network, then they may not be able to access sort of the internal networks of the organization. So we can separate them based on their duties, based on their responsibilities, and that can help us improve security. Then one of the main reasons why we may choose to use VLANs is we may want to have that separation, but doing that separation by physical networks, so having physically separated network, may be highly costly, because like then at, say, if each flow has different organizational units, then each flow will have to be connected physically through separate cables, separate switches and so on, if we are not implementing VLANs. So then that could be highly costly. So here what we could do is we could use the same infrastructure, physical infrastructure, and then we virtually split those into these virtual networks. And by implementing it in this manner and limiting, putting things into these grouped or small group networks, we can actually improve the performance of the whole network, because the network is now segmented significantly. So each of the smaller networks can perform much better comparatively. And one of the ways that could happen is with these smaller broadcast domains. So say if we have 6 devices in total here, and so if there are 6 devices, if we send out a broadcast packet, that needs to go to all the other 5 devices there. Whereas if we have VLANs and only 2 of the devices are belonging to a particular VLAN, now only those 2 are in a broadcast domain. So the broadcast domain becomes smaller. So the amount of information that is going across also becomes smaller. And by implementing VLANs, or by implementing a VLAN type environment, we can sort of efficiently sort of manage the IT infrastructure, because we limit unnecessarily giving access to people who don't need access to parts of networks. And also we can bring in the management to a center point, so we can again manage this from a management software point of view rather than physical network point of view. So that is also we can gain some advantages from that side as well. When rather than implementing a large number of different sets of physical networks, we can build a single and a fairly simpler physical network, and then we can segment those into whatever the necessary networks using these virtual LANs or virtual networks. So then when we look at VLANs, when we are implementing VLANs, we would identify a number of different types of VLANs that can be supported in many devices. So the first one is what we call as the default VLAN, or that is the VLAN, or rather anything. If we enable VLAN on a switch, any port on that switch becomes part of this default VLAN. So normally that is denoted by VLAN 1, and all the ports in the network or in that switch will be associated with VLAN 1 by default. So by default, anything that is plugged into that switch will be associated with VLAN 1. So that is the default VLAN. Then whenever we need additional VLANs to, say, to a particular organizational division or a department and so on, we would create these additional VLANs as data VLANs. So data VLANs are the ones that we would normally create as additional new VLANs. So, and then we would have what is called a native VLAN. So normally native VLANs are there to carry traffic that is not particularly tagged for a VLAN. So say if we identify certain VLANs, and then those devices will be or any packets that are destined to those devices will be tagged by that VLAN ID or VLAN tag, whereas other devices or any packets to other devices will not be tagged. So these untagged devices, we would call that as the native VLAN, and by default, in most cases, this native VLAN would also be the default VLAN. So in sort of typical implementation, native VLAN will also be default VLAN, but it is possible for us to separate them and have a separate native VLAN added there. And another category that we may have is what is called the management VLAN, and the management VLAN is there mainly for the purpose of adding our sort of network resources on a separate VLAN. So even in the previous lesson, when we were looking at configuring switches and so on through IP networks, we said that now the VLAN, now the switch is accessible to anyone in the IP network, but if we put them on a separate VLAN only for management of these devices, only system administrators can join that network, and they will be able to make changes to the network devices. Others will be prevented from entering that network. So we can make certain controlled setup by using that in our networks. So now the next thing that we can look at is when we implement VLANs in our networks, what we would end up having is there would be parts of the network that would be carrying traffic that belongs to a number of VLANs. So for example, this switch is now attached to a number of devices, and each of these devices belong to different VLANs. So This is VLAN 10, 20 and 30. So each of these devices belong to different VLANs, and now this switch is supporting or like having traffic that belongs to 3 separate VLANs. So now when that switch is connected to this one, switch 1, that connectivity or that link is going to carry traffic that belongs to 3 different networks. So if these are the 3 switches, both these links, this link and this link, they are going to carry traffic that belongs to all the 3 VLANs. And additionally, if we have a management VLAN, separate management VLAN, then also traffic belonging to that VLAN. So when we have that type of links that are going to carry number of VLAN traffics together, we would call them as a VLAN trunk. So what we do there is a VLAN trunk will carry traffic belonging to a number of VLANs. So one of the things that needs to happen is on a switch, the ports that are associated with a VLAN trunk will not be associated with a particular VLAN. So what we would normally do is, say on a switch, say if we take this switch for example, on this switch we would configure this interface to be VLAN 10, this interface to be VLAN 20 and this interface to be VLAN 30. But this interface we will not configure it as a single VLAN, we will configure it as a VLAN trunk that is going to carry traffic for all these 3 VLANs. Similarly, these will be configured as VLAN trunks because they are carrying traffic for multiple VLANs, whereas these ports again will be configured for those particular VLANs. Then once we configure VLANs like that, then the aspect of broadcast domain will also come into play. So now when we have this is VLAN 10 and this is VLAN 10, this is VLAN 20 and that is 20. So when network is like that, if no VLANs are implemented, so if this network is there but without VLANs, if PC1 sends a broadcast, normally that broadcast would go to all these devices. It will go to this switch, then it will go to this device, then it will pass on through this switch, and then it will go to all the devices on the network. So broadcast domain will be that whole thing. Whereas when we do it from a VLAN perspective, if PC1 sends a broadcast, it will go to the switch, but the switch will not forward it to this link because that doesn't belong to VLAN 10. But it will forward here because that is a VLAN trunk carrying traffic for VLAN 10 also. Then it will go through that trunk again because that also supports VLAN 10 or carry traffics for VLAN 10. Then when it comes to this switch, that will only send that broadcast to VLAN 10 attached device and not to this one. So now we have effectively reduced the number of devices on that particular broadcast domain. So by doing that, one of the main things that would happen is we would eliminate or we can reduce the amount of traffic that is going around the network that are sort of not particularly needed for a particular part of the network. So we have limited the broadcast domain only to that smaller VLAN segment only. So far we said that, okay, we are having these devices, attached to these switches, and on each switch we are identifying a port as it belongs to a particular VLAN. So what we had here was, say on this port we said that belongs to VLAN 10, and the other port belongs to VLAN 20. So at that level, that is okay. So on this part of the traffic, there's no issues, because the port itself would identify to which VLAN it belongs to, and then it reaches the device. But on these trunks, the trunks are going to carry traffic for a number of VLANs. So this trunk is carrying traffic for VLAN 10 and VLAN 20. So when we have such a situation, we need to have a mechanism to identify between different VLANs. So whenever these Ethernet frames are being transmitted between switches, at switches it should be able to identify to which VLAN that particular frame belongs to, so it can forward them correctly. So to do that, what we would use is what is called a VLAN tag. So a VLAN tag is an additional information that is normally added onto the main Ethernet frame, and so this is the additional VLAN tag that would be included in the Ethernet frame when it is passing through a VLAN trunk, and it would have a number of information, the main one being the VLAN ID. So the VLAN ID is the main sort of key information there, identifying which is the VLAN that it belongs to. So what we would have is, so after identifying the destination and source addresses, so that needs to be there anyway to do the switching appropriately, but after that we would also add the VLAN tag there, so that will be added in between that point. So the rest of the frame will remain unchanged as well. So it is an additional part that is inserted in between there. So then when VLANs are so when these frames arrive at a particular network point or particular switch, say for example, let's say this is the switch, and here it is a computer, and this is another switch, and this is a computer here. So on this part of the link, there will not be a particular VLAN, because the VLAN will be identified by that port. This link would be a trunk that can carry number of different VLAN traffic for a number of different VLANs. So here we would add the VLAN tag. Then this switch would use that VLAN tag and identify what is the device, and here again it would use the port to forward it to the device. So only on these VLAN trunks that are carrying traffic for a number of VLANs is where we would add these VLAN tags. So VLAN tags will be added and removed at the switches, so they will not reach the end nodes or devices that are attached to those switches. So then one of the things that could happen is, say we are getting, so among or like through our switches, we may have certain parts of the network that don't particularly belong to a VLAN. So this is what we would identify as native VLAN. So any sort of device that is not particularly belonging to a identified VLAN. So any such information that is received will be sort of untagged even when they are forwarded. So only traffic that is originating and coming from particular VLANs will be tagged when they are passed on through these switches, through the trunks. When they are not particularly belonging to a VLAN, they will not be tagged. So what we would ideally want to do is, when we are configuring these switches, we would want to configure them in a way that they are not forwarding traffic either forwarding VLAN tagged traffic onto native VLANs and vice versa. So we would want to avoid both those things. And one of the other sort of special category of VLANs that we may find in many organizational environments is what we call as a voice VLANs or auxiliary VLANs. Auxiliary VLANs are sort of another type of VLANs that are there to do they are sort of in addition to the standard data VLANs. These auxiliary VLANs will have some additional requirements or certain differences between the type of traffic that they carry. An example of that is a voice VLAN. So normally voice VLANs are used when we are using some form of voice over IP telephone devices. So like an IP phone. So what we would have is these IP phone traffic will have a very different requirement compared to data traffic. Say from the IP phone, we may want to have certain low latency, because like when we are talking to someone on the phone, the quality of the call or the perceived quality of that call will depend on the latency of the traffic. So how like the proper flow of information between the network nodes will be necessary on a voice over IP application. That may not be exactly necessary on a standard data traffic. So what we may want to do is we may want to identify any traffic originating from such devices onto a separate auxiliary VLAN, which we would identify as a voice VLAN, and then all the switches may give additional priority to any network traffic that is originating from these VLANs. So if we say VLAN 101 is the voice VLAN, that would get more priority compared to the VLAN 100, which is the data VLAN. So what we would do is in a sort of typical IP phone in an organizational environment, the most typical way of connecting IP phones to networks is, so say if we have a network switch, we would normally connect the IP phone to the network switch and then the PC to the IP phone. So what we would have is, inside those IP phones, we will have a small switch. It's sort of an inbuilt switch that can handle these three devices, so to speak. That switch will be connected to this external switch, the PC, and also the internal IP phone device. So then this switch will add the VLAN tags to identify or separate between the traffic that is originating from the PC and the traffic that is originating from the voice device. So then it would add the VLAN tag to the VLAN traffic, the voice VLAN tag, and the data VLAN tag will be added to the other one, and then they would be forwarded on to the network based on those VLAN identifiers. So IP like the link between the IP phone and the main switch would now effectively become a trunk link, because that is going to carry traffic that belongs to two different VLANs. Now let's look at how we can do some basic implementation of VLANs on our switches. So the main thing to sort of identify first is, so we identify VLANs using these VLAN numbers or VLAN identifiers. So that is the way that we would differentiate between different VLANs. So we would have like two main categories based on that. One is called a normal range VLAN and the other one is called the extended range VLAN. The main difference being, normal range VLANs will have a lower number and extended range will have the higher number. And the other difference is, normal range VLANs are normally stored on the device flash memory, whereas extended range VLANs are normally maintained in the running configuration on the NVRAM. And one of the other things is, if we want to like use the VLAN trunking protocol, we need to use the normal VLANs because extended VLANs are not supported in the in the VLAN trunking protocol. But in most cases, in most sort of typical organization of networks and VLANs, we would tend to use normal VLANs most of the time. Only in very rare circumstances that we may go to extended VLANs, because in most network situation, only using the VLANs in the normal range would be enough to configure the whole network. So the basic command for configuring a VLAN or creating a VLAN on a switch is fairly simple. We go into the configuration of the switch and then we create a VLAN by specifying a particular VLAN ID. So we just say VLAN and we just give an ID, then that is a new VLAN created. And then we can optionally add a name to the VLAN. So that is an identifiable name to give to the VLAN. So we can say the VLAN 20 is student VLAN. So that would be configured there. Then once we have configured those VLANs, now we need to attach the various ports to that VLAN. So that we would identify, say, if this switch is now supporting VLAN 20 as student VLAN. Now what we need to do is we need to make that PC always attached to VLAN 20. So there what we do is we go to this interface, the interface that is connecting to that particular device. So F018 is the interface, and there we go there and we first enable VLAN access or access mode. So that is switch port mode access command. We will use that to enable that, and then we would specify that that port belongs to VLAN 20. So once we do that, now that particular device belongs to VLAN 20. So any traffic that is coming from that device, the switch will interpret as add the VLAN tag for VLAN 20 and forward it along any trunks that are there. The other way that we can, another option that we may have is, say, if you want to also configure a voice VLAN, for example, we can again, for voice VLAN, we would go and create another VLAN saying a voice VLAN 150, and then we can go into the interface, because this particular interface of the switch, this 18, is need to support both of these things. It needs to support both VLAN 20 and VLAN 150, because both of those traffic are going to come from that particular interface. So we would first configure VLAN 20 as previously. So that will support any traffic that is originating from the PC, and that will be VLAN 20. But then additionally, we would go and enable this command, that is MLSQoS, quality of service command, and then we would add the voice VLAN. So access VLAN is the data VLAN or the based VLAN that we would configure, and we can to switch port voice VLAN to configure any sort of VLAN that is tagged separately from voice devices. So by doing that, now we have configured this switch to support both these two devices or into two different VLANs. And say then if we want to say delete a VLAN or remove a VLAN configuration that we have already done, we can simply go into the same interface. We go into the interface and we say no switch port access VLAN. So similar to we use switch port access VLAN and a VLAN ID to create a VLAN, we would give no switch port access VLAN to remove any VLAN configuration on that interface. And if you want to delete or remove the VLAN altogether from the switch itself, we can give the no VLAN and the VLAN ID to remove the VLAN entirely. So then once we create VLANs, we may want to go and verify what are the devices that are attached to that VLAN, or what are the interfaces that are configured for a particular VLAN. So what we can do is say if we do the command show VLAN name and give the name, it will list out the information about that VLAN. So it will give the VLAN ID, the number, and the status of the VLAN, and what are the ports that are currently configured for that particular VLAN. Then it would also identify what are the sort of other communication properties that are there, and if there are additional ports that are configured, that will be shown there as well. If we issue the VLAN summary command, it will show the summary of all the VLANs that are configured on that particular switch. If we want to check the VLAN configuration of a particular interface, we would give the show interface VLAN command to see if the particular interface is enabled and VLAN is enabled on that particular interface, and if it is up and running, and all this information we can see using that command. So these commands we would mainly use to verify the configuration of VLANs, whether they are configured correctly, and in case when we need to troubleshoot some issues, we will use these commands to check those things. Then another thing that we will have to configure, so now we have configured these interfaces, data interfaces and also voice VLAN interfaces. But another thing that we will have to configure is the VLAN trunks. So the interfaces are configured to support these parts, but now we have to configure the VLAN trunk that is there. So to do that, again we will have to go into a particular interface, because only a particular interface will be configured for the trunk. Then we would make it switch port mode as a trunk. Then there we would have to specify what is the native VLAN for that trunk. So that is what is the untagged frames, so the native VLAN for any untagged frames, how they are going to be transferred, and what are the other allowed VLANs for that particular trunk. So any traffic that is passing through here without any VLAN identifiers will carry the native VLAN tag, and then these are the other VLANs that we would allow. So just to recap that, so what we would have is, say if we have a device here that doesn't have a particular VLAN, so another device that we have here, I'll take a small break. So if we have a device here, say that is not belonging to any VLAN, so PC1 is VLAN 10, 2 is VLAN 20, 3 is VLAN 30, and say if we have a PC4 and that doesn't belong to any VLAN, we have not configured that as belonging to any particular VLAN. So when the information is, when the frames are forwarded through this trunk, if a frame is coming from PC1, it will be tagged with VLAN tag 10. If it is coming from this PC, it will be tagged with VLAN tag 20. This will be VLAN tag 30. This one technically doesn't belong to any VLAN. So technically we will not be tagging it with any particular VLAN tag, but native, so we would say that belongs to native VLAN. But if you want to separate that, we can give an identifier there to say that is VLAN 99, and at the end of this switch, then that tag will be again removed and forwarded as a packet without a VLAN tag. So the two things that we would do in configuring VLAN trunks, one is enabling the switch port mode trunk, and then specifying the native VLAN and specifying what are the VLANs that are allowed through that particular trunk. So now let's look at some of the typical issues that we may encounter when we are working with VLANs. So one of the main things that we have to think about is when we configure VLANs, even though the devices may be located and in different places, they still need to be part of the same IP network. Say if this is VLAN 10 and that is VLAN 10, every device on the VLAN 10 needs to be on the same IP network. But here what we can see is this PC is like a 172.172 network, whereas these devices are 172.17 networks. Even though all of them are VLAN 10, this particular PC has a different IP network configured. So here the problem is the IP network configuration is incorrect in the PC. So we may have to reconfigure that to change the IP address of the PC to belong to the same network as these other devices on the same VLAN 10. So that is one of the common problems that we may encounter, and one of the reasons could be because these devices could span across different places. Then there may be certain misconfigurations that are possible when things are done like that. So all the devices should have IP addresses belonging to the same network. Then another typical problem that we may encounter is even when we have configured the VLAN IP addresses and networks on these switches correctly, the problem could be that say this is VLAN 10, but if one of these switches, so of these three switches, all of them need to be properly configured to carry traffic that belongs to VLAN 10. So these interfaces need to be configured with correct VLANs. These trunks need to be configured with correct VLANs. So all the trunks and interfaces needs to be configured with correct VLANs. So that is another issue that we may encounter. That is, the switches are not properly configured, or parts of the switches interfaces are not properly configured. So then what we would do is we would go into each interface and check how they are configured. Are they configured for a particular VLAN and so on. So we will go into each switch and we can see what is the switch port mode and what is the VLAN that is configured in those devices. Then the third problem that we may encounter is regarding the trunks. So when we have the trunks, so again we can go to the switch and see what are the trunks that are configured, and we have to first see if we have configured the native VLANs properly, and then if we have other interfaces, then again have we configured all the VLANs on the sort of correct VLAN modes, and all those things are configured properly. So we have to configure and also we have to configure the trunks on the both ends of the network. So if one switch is connecting to another switch and this is the trunk that we are configuring, we have to configure the trunk here and also here with the same supporting set of VLAN. So if we are expecting VLAN 10 and 20 to pass through here and here, this trunk should be configured at both ends to support both those VLANs. So when we think about configuring trunks, again we may encounter a number of problems with configuring trunks. So one is if we configure at both ends of the switches or both the ends of the trunk, if we configure the native VLANs incorrectly, so one end and the other end, the native VLANs are configured as two different entities. Or sometimes we may configure both ends of the link as incorrectly. Say one side may be not configured as a trunk but as an access port. So access ports are only used as sort of end devices to connect to end devices and nodes. So even though that is supposed to be a trunk, at one of the ends it is incorrectly configured as an access port. And the other most common problem could be that we have not allowed the necessary VLANs through that trunk. So at one end we say 10, 20 and 30 are allowed, and the other end we only say 10 and 30 are allowed, 20 is missing there. So we have to check all those things, and whenever needed we have to modify them to make sure that those issues with the trunking is not there. So here, for example, we can see an example of ports being incorrectly configured. So what we see here is, so with these three switches, this is a trunk and that is a trunk. So what we would need is both the ends of these trunks to be configured as trunks. But what we have is, we have configured this F03 as a access port. So we will have to change that into a trunk. So we will have to change the mode into a trunk to fix that problem. If we look at the incorrect VLAN listing, again here what we see is this particular trunk between S1 and S2, it is not configured to include VLAN 20. So then we have to include that there as well. So the next thing that we can look at is, so once we have configured switches properly, we have created VLANs, we have created a number of VLANs. So now the network traffic can function without any issues. But now once we create these VLANs, what we end up is these separate networks. So now any communication between these VLANs, so even though two devices may be adjacent to each other on a switch, but they may belong to two different VLANs. When that is the situation that we have at hand, all the traffic routing will have to go through the router and they have to be routed. So that is what we would call as inter-VLAN routing. So it is as with any network routing between different networks. Here, even though they may be physically belonging in the same sort of network infrastructure, they would still need to be routed across these different VLANs. So what we would have is, say if this PC is associated with a particular VLAN, so then it has to go to the switch, then it has to go to the router to identify how it needs to be forwarded to other devices. So if we have different devices, so even though these devices are belonging, or the switch is supporting a number of VLANs, the routing will still may need to be happening at the router. So this type of inter-VLAN routing, we will have a number of options to do this routing. So the first one is what we call legacy inter-VLAN routing, and then we have a number of approaches, number of other options called router on a stick and layer 3 switching. So we will look at each of these in a bit more detail now. So when we look at legacy VLAN routing, so legacy VLAN routing, the main point here is, from the point of view of the router, it is not aware of the existence of any VLANs. So this switch is configured to support VLANs. All the switches are configured to support with VLANs. All of those switches are interconnected using VLAN trunks. Then those the devices are configured with the properly configured interfaces. So all this part of the network is supporting VLANs without any issues. But from the switch point of view, beyond the switch and router, what we would have is, for each VLAN that we have there, we would have a separate network connectivity to the router. So if we have the router and we have the switch here, and the switch is supporting, say, 2 VLANs, we would have 2 separate connections, 2 separate physical connections to 2 separate interfaces of the router. If we have 3 here, we would have to add another interface, another link, and another interface there. So here what would happen is, from the router's point of view, switch would actually forward traffic only belonging to a single VLAN through a single link. So say if there is 3 VLANs, 10, 20 and 30, we would use this for 10, this for 20 and this for 30. So from the router's point of view, 3 different networks are connecting through 3 links, and it will do its routing with as it would do usually. So there's no particular difference in terms of the router's understanding. Router is still considering as 3 separate networks. The problem is, say if we have larger networks, so if we have much more larger networks with about 10 different VLANs, then what we would need is, we would need 10 additional interfaces or connections between the switch and the router, and that may be unnecessary and also sometimes impractical to have that many connections from every switch to the router. So that is one of the disadvantages we may have with this approach. But from the point of view of the router, this is a fairly simpler approach because it doesn't have to have any complex understanding of VLANs. All the VLANs are implemented at the switch level, and the router just considers them as separate individual networks. So if we say, for example, if we have a network traffic coming from this VLAN, VLAN 10, a device belonging to VLAN 10, and that needs to go to VLAN 30, it would come through this link to the router, and then the router will do its usual routing from this network to this network, so using its routing table and using usual routing protocols, and then it would identify that network is connected to this through this interface and forward the traffic here. So even though it is originating from the same switch and coming back to the same switch, it will still be routed as standard network traffic at the router's end. So to configure and use legacy VLAN routing, what we need is the router to have multiple physical interfaces. So if we want to support two VLANs, we need to have two interfaces readily available at the router, and each of those interfaces will be independently connected to a single VLAN that is there, and the interfaces, those interfaces will be also configured with the IP addresses belonging to that particular subnet mask of that particular VLAN. Then the VLANs that are connected, all the various devices that are connected to there, they will be as they are connected to separate networks. So say instead of, it can be viewed as sort of from a logical point of view, it would be seen as like two separate switches are connected through two different planes, because both these interfaces will be configured with IP addresses of that particular network and so on. So the router will see them as separate networks. And from the point of view of the switch, we also need to have certain configurations here. The main thing is we would configure this link between this router and the switch as an access link, because it is only going to carry traffic for a single VLAN. So that is the main point about an access link. It is going to carry network belonging to a single VLAN. So that will be an access link. And if it is a directly connected one, that one will also be an access link. It could also be, additionally, there could be trunks as well here, but that is the main configuration that we do. Mainly between considering any configurations between the router and the switch, we will mainly configure the links as access links. Then at the router interface, what we would configure is we will go and configure the particular IP address or the network address or the gateway address for that particular network. Because like normally how we configure gateway addresses for a network is, that is the IP address of the router for that particular network. Now we have two different networks, and each of those networks need to have a separate gateway. So network 10 and network 30 will have two different gateway addresses, and both those networks and interfaces that are connected to the switch for each of those VLANs, they will be configured as the gateway network there. So what we would do is, say if this is VLAN 10, we would configure this as the access link of VLAN 10 on the switch end, and then configure it as the gateway for VLAN 10 network at the router. Similarly, this interface will be configured as the gateway for VLAN 30 network, and this link will be an access link for VLAN 30. So one of the main disadvantages that we would encounter with legacy VLAN routing is this part. So that is the connection between the switch and the router. We need to have separate physical links for each VLAN that is present. So if there are 3 VLANs, we need 3 links. If there are 10 VLANs, we need 10 separate links from the switch to the router itself. So the problem with that approach is it may not be practical to have that many interfaces on a router, and it is unnecessary in many situations. So with router on a stick approach, what we have here is we would have that link between the router and the switch also as a trunk link. So similar to how we can have trunk links carrying traffic for all the VLANs, between the switches, we would do the same thing using a trunk link between the router and the switch. So now we only need one physical interface from the router that is connected to the switch, and that particular interface will be configured to support all those VLANs that are going to be carried for that particular network. And then say if we have a number of networks that are belonging to these 3 different VLANs, what we would have to do is we would have to configure this interface as sub interfaces. So say if G00 is the main interface, we would configure additional 3 sub interfaces as G00, 10, 20 and 30, and each of these interfaces will be configured as the default gateway to each of those VLAN networks. So here physically we are going to have a single connection, and physically it is going to be connected to a single interface, but inside the router we would implement these sub interfaces that are going to separate that traffic between each of the VLAN networks. So what we do here is we just create a single link between the router and the switch. So that is the physical connectivity that we need. Then inside the router itself, what we need to do is we need to create these sub interfaces. So there will be one interface, but under that we'll have to create number of sub interfaces associated to each of the VLANs that we are going to support. So each of the VLANs will support each of those sub interfaces. Then that sub interfaces will be assigned those default gateway IP addresses, and then whatever the it will be that IP address assignment will belong to what the network of that particular VLAN tag. So then any traffic that is flowing through that can be identified at that sub interface using that particular net gateway address at the router. Then at the switch end of the switches, the main configuration that we will have to do is we will have to, in legacy VLAN routing, what we did was we made these as individual links, and each of them were access ports, whereas here they have to be trunk ports. So because we have to, it is a trunk port because now it is a trunk for all the VLAN. So we will configure it as a trunk port compared to in legacy VLAN routing. So then that will be trunking all the traffic between the switch and the router. On the router end, we will have to go and configure these sub interfaces, and those sub interfaces. We will go and configure the particular network addresses for those sub interfaces. So that is again an additional configuration that we will have to do from the router end. So once you have configured router on a stick, you can go and verify if the sub interfaces are configured correctly. So you can do a show VLAN command to see if the VLAN like the sub interfaces are associated with the correct VLAN. So that is it will identify what is the sub interface and what is the VLAN that it belongs to. So we can verify that, and we can also go and check the show IP route command to see what are the interfaces that are configured and to what networks they are connected to. So here we can see each of these sub networks are connected to sort of different networks here. So as with any physical interface that may be connected to a particular network, sub interfaces will also be configured in a similar manner. So beyond that, it can be seen as sort of these separate interfaces, even though they are sub interfaces conceptually. Then we can verify routing between these devices using based on either ping commands or trace route commands. We can use those commands to verify if the routing has been configured properly. So at this point, the checking is based on how we would check if the routing is correctly. We will use the same commands. The only difference is now it is configured through this router on a stick method. So that's all we would be covering in VLANs here. So the main idea is we would use VLANs to create these segmented networks that are actually belonging in the same physical network infrastructure, and we get a number of advantages of improved security, control over management, and so on. And we also looked at how to implement them on switches, and also how routing can be done across VLAN networks and so on. Then there's another thing about layer 3 switching, which is also something that can support VLAN. So here another way of inter-VLAN routing, where we may have switches, layer 3 switches, or switches that can support layer 3 networks. So what we may do is we may not need to go to the router itself. At the switch itself, it can interconnect between different VLANs, and things can be routed that way. We will not cover that in this course, but it will be covered in the next semester in the next course. So that's all we have for VLANs for today. Do you have any questions on anything that we covered so far? So if there are no questions, I think we can conclude the lesson for the day. And as always, you will have a number of packet trace activities posted for your practicals today. You don't need to complete all of those. There's a select 4 that I have indicated with the submission. So you will have to complete those for submission. But as always, again, I will suggest that you go and practice through all the given packet trace activities. So as there are no other questions, we will conclude now and see you next week. Thanks for joining in the lecture. Bye.